Becoming a fossil is such a staggeringly unlikely thing that statistically none of us should ever dream of it happening. And so fossils are, in the grand scheme, rather rare. But here's the thing. The Earth has hosted such an unimaginable quantity of life over such an unimaginable stretch of time that even a rare event multiplied across billions of years adds up. Right now, this second, there are quintillions of animals sharing this planet with you. So despite the odds, fossils pile up, and entire industries are built on digging them out of the ground. And most of them, frankly, are familiar. A new find is usually a variation on a theme we already know. A new dinosaur turns out to be some kind of hadrosaur. A new fish slots neatly onto a branch we've already mapped. It's genuinely rare that we unearth something both brand new and mind-bending. But it happens. Every so often, the Earth hands paleontologists a specimen so bizarre that even now they're standing over it scratching their heads, unable to say what on earth they're even looking at. Today, I want to show you those specimens, the creatures that broke the filing system. And there's no better place to begin than with the Tully Monster. Its story starts in 1966, when an amateur collector was poking around the Mason Creek fossil beds in Illinois, a site that some 300 million years ago sat beneath a warm, shallow tropical sea. He found not one, but several strange fossils. He could tell they'd once been alive. Beyond that, he had nothing. So he took them to the experts at the Field Museum in Chicago, and the experts were just as stumped as he was. Because this thing had a long, cigar-shaped body, a pair of triangular fins at the back, eyes mounted on a stalk that jutted out sideways like a hammerhead's, and, strangest of all, a long, jointed proboscis tipped with a little claw full of teeth. It looks like something a child invented, or a creature from a video game. The only saving grace is its size. Most specimens are under 14 inches long. Its sheer weirdness made it a celebrity, and researchers around the world had a crack at it. And they could not agree. A mollusk, said some, an arthropod, a worm, a conodont, a vertebrate. The one thing everyone accepted was that it lived in water. And here's the kicker. Nearly 90 years and thousands of specimens later, we have barely moved. A 2016 study claimed it was a vertebrate, a relative of lampreys. Then, in 2023, a team in Japan ran a 3D laser scanner over it and concluded the vertebrate idea doesn't hold up after all. So the mystery didn't get solved, it got deeper. Today, the honest answer is that it was a bilaterian, which sounds impressive until you learn that 98% of all animals are bilaterians. We've essentially said it was an animal with a left and a right side. That's how little we know. And America wasn't done producing riddles, because over in Montana in the 1970s, a fossil turned up so baffling that scientists simply nicknamed it the alien goldfish. This is Typhlosus, and it's even older than the Tully Monster, dating back around 330 million years. It was so confusing that for a long time nobody wanted to publish on it. It just sat there, an unwanted headache. All researchers could say was that it had a spindle-shaped body, was tiny, and had a single tail fin, so, like the Tully Monster, it could swim. But everything else made things worse. It had no other appendages, no clear anus, and, I love this, an internal organ that has never been seen in any other animal before or since. It's now called a ferrodiscus, and all we know is that it was packed with iron. What it did? No idea. So what do you do with something ancient and inexplicable? You find an equally weird group and shove it in there. In this case, the conodonts, primitive, jawless creatures. And it briefly looked promising, because a specimen turned up with little conodont-like teeth inside it. Case closed, Everyone relaxed. And then a researcher realized those teeth weren't part of Typhlosus, they were in its gut. It had eaten a conodont. So we learned it was a predator and nothing else. And that was the state of play for 3 decades. Until 2022, when a new study dropped a bombshell. Typhlosus might have been a mollusk. Because it appears to have had a toothy, tongue-like structure, it could shoot out to grab prey, much like the radula of a snail or slug. Wonderful! Except it's since turned out that radula-like tongues have evolved independently in non-mollusks too. So, once again, we're not sure. The alien goldfish remains alien. At least those two are solo acts. Sometimes the puzzles come in pairs, and 2 of them came out of the very same Mason Creek beds as the Tully Monster. These fossils were so hard to describe that the best analogy anyone could reach for was the alphabet. They're formally named Etacystis and Escumasia, but everyone knows them as the H animal and the Y animal, because that is genuinely what they look like. The H animal was arguably the stranger looking, shaped like a letter H with an odd growth in the middle. We think it filtered particles from the water and was a colonial creature that grew throughout its life, and its little sac came in different shapes depending on the individual. Circular, heart-shaped, take your pick. The best guess is that it was a hemichordate, a cousin of the acorn worms. Its Y-shaped partner looked tamer, but has been even more troublesome, because it resembles a sea anemone while having features anemones don't. Bilateral symmetry, a full gut, and yes, a backside. So we can only say it was an animal with a mouth. Its arms might not even be arms. Now, if you've been keeping up, you'll have noticed a pattern. The further back we go, the weirder it gets. And there's one period that beats everything. A chapter so full of baffling life that a researcher, defeated, simply lumped it all into one bag. This is the Ediacaran biota. These are the fossils of the Ediacaran period, between 635 and about 539 million years ago. The first time large, complex life shows up in the record in any abundance. And so much of it is unclassifiable. Take one of the strangest of them all, Namacalathus. I can only describe it as looking like a tree made of flesh. When it was first found, people thought it resembled some alien habitat, given the openings on top. But when they examined its trunk, they realized it had been calcified in life, meaning this was no plant, it was an animal, and it represents some of the oldest evidence of a skeleton on Earth. And then they found what covered its body, and it only got worse. It was studded with grasping tentacles and rows of spines, and those openings came not just as circles, but as hearts, crescents, hexagons, a nightmare gallery of shapes. It could adjust its size depending on where it lived and turn up almost anywhere, though it seems to have preferred the deep abyss. What was it? Visually, a coral gone very wrong, but studies found it too complex to be a coral. Recent work suggests it may have been a lopophorate, a relative of brachiopods, but honestly, we mostly just know that it was alive and deeply unsettling. It has plenty of company. There's Dickinsonia, which looks like a ribbed bathroom mat, except it lived and moved. There are so many of these strange, flat, quilted creatures, Vendia, Sprigina, and others, that scientists gave up and bundled them into a proposed group called the Proarticulata. And despite having loads of their fossils, we still can't confidently say how they relate to any living thing. Here's a detail that quietly drives me up the wall. They look perfectly symmetrical, but they're actually slightly asymmetrical. One side doesn't quite mirror the other. And they may have left no descendants at all. which would make the whole lot of them an evolutionary dead end. But even the Ediacaran isn't the deepest we can go, because there's a find so old and so ambiguous that scientists are still arguing over whether it counts as a fossil at all. For this, you have to go back 2.1 billion years to a period whose name literally translates to stream of lava. In Gabon, in West Africa, researchers found black shale deposits full of odd structures, discs, tubes, strings of pearls, even something like a flower. And their forms are so strange that no one is certain they were ever alive. The team that found them said colonial multicellular organisms, probably eukaryotes. Others said no, these are just inorganic pyrite formations. The problem is enormous. This site is over 400 million years older than the previously known oldest multicellular life. Calling it a eukaryote is a staggering claim. But recent studies have swung back toward, yes, these are real fossils. An isotope analysis found them enriched in zinc, a possible fingerprint of living metabolism. Imagine that, a discovery so confusing we are only now deciding whether we're even allowed to call it life. And I want to end with a twist, because not every mystery comes from something monstrous. Sometimes the confusion comes from a creature that looks perfectly familiar. Meet Nectocaris. Found back in 1910 in the famous Burgess Shale, it was initially described as a sort of stretched-out swimming shrimp. Its name literally means swimming shrimp. But it was odd. It had features of arthropods, yet fins that were all wrong for one. So it was left unclassified. Decades later, another researcher looked at photos and decided it was a chordate, a distant relative of us. That stuck for over 20 years. And then came the bad news. The original fossil was incomplete. When 91 better specimens were found in 2010, Nectocaris turned out to look nothing like a shrimp or a chordate. It looked like a squid, a flat, kite-shaped body, 2 tentacles, 2 stalked eyes, and a funnel. So it was declared the earliest cephalopod, 30 million years older than any known before. Mystery solved. Except its anatomy flatly contradicted everything we understand about how cephalopods evolved. It was as if someone found a modern human fossil before the first primates existed. So the cephalopod idea was thrown out too, and we are once again back to square one. The animal officially indeterminate, sitting in its own homeless little family with a close relative found in 2019. So the takeaway after all of this is a simple one. For all our science, the deep past still keeps its secrets. Life, it turns out, was under no obligation to be something we'd recognize, and some of it never will be. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep looking up.